Hey everyone, this is Faye Enigma. I wanted to do yet another blog read from Insane Journal. This one is about a year old. It was done on the 28th of August 2012. Before I started reading from this one, I wanted to touch base a little bit. A lot of my blogs will deal with the past, events that have stuck with me through the years. I tend to be a very nostalgic person, and I do a lot of my living in the past. It's probably one of my largest faults. It has a lot to do with the fact that my husband and I can't move forward into our futures. With that said, I'll go ahead and start reading. The subject matter is the battle of right and wrong. I have no idea if any of this will come across the way I'm hoping to bring my thoughts to life. I have no idea if I'll be able to convey what I'm desperately trying to say. I have always been an advocate of doing what's right. It's how I was raised, it's how I was taught to perceive the balance of life itself. To say that the path I've chosen to follow has been easy or that I'm capable would be a great error. I will always believe in light over darkness. I will always try my hardest to be a light and fight for those who are defending themselves desperately against those shadows. My armor has become rusted and severely damaged. It creaks and groans and bears many dents from a multitude of battles, some lost, some won. It has very much become a struggle. I do not at all desire nor expect any reward in return for the blood, sweat, and tears I give. But looking back, I'm appalled. I'm appalled because for all the arenas I've entered in the name of good, never once have I received a gracious word. Not one thank you, no back patting or praise. I've been the recipient of more backlashes than anything for all of my dutiful attempts at benevolence. There is one memory that stands out amongst the blur of time, and the wounds that particular battle left imprinted on my heart still feel fresh today. I was about 17 years old, and I was working my tail off under the ever-critical eyes of my mom at the retirement home. One of our competing facilities currently had my grandmother's neighbor in their care, a man who I grew up to think of as another grandfather in my life. There are many, many more memories of this man and the joy he brought to the people around him. I can still remember the scent of the cigars that lingered around him, by no means acrid, but instead sweet. I wasn't aware that he had been ill, or that he was now lying on his deathbed. After my grandparents passed on, it was rare for me to return to that part of town they lived in. I didn't mean to abandon him. I didn't mean to suddenly disappear and not be courteous enough to visit or even call. I guess, most of all, I didn't mean to grow up so fast and leave the grown-ups that had modeled me into a responsible and kind-hearted adult behind. When word finally did reach me that he was being treated, I rushed to be by his bedside. He still called me Blue Eyes. I held his hand and we reminisced, but I was truly dismayed at the lack of care he was receiving. He mentioned to me it took the caregivers over 3 hours to bring him his medication, not to mention attend him for bathing, which he was in dire need of after an accident and medication-induced vomiting. The facility wasn't exactly well known for being top-notch or having the most caring staff. Unfortunately, our dear elders do not get the care they deserve, especially elder veterans. I complained on his behalf, but I was waved off at the late hour in which I marched to the caregiver station. I visited with him each and every night over the next week. When his health continued to deteriorate and I noticed his room hadn't been sanitized, not to mention his bedsheets changed, and that he was beginning to form sores. He even had a wound that was bleeding. My hot-headed teenager taught blue. The next morning, I called Adult Protective Services and gave them an anonymous tip. I would have given my name, but because I was working for a fellow rehabilitation and retirement center, I couldn't. After the call, guilt started to gnaw at me, so I dialed the number to his home where one of his daughters was staying to take care of his things while he was away. I informed her of what I had done, believing that it was right. Believing that, as his daughter, she would be thankful that someone was looking out for her father. I was wrong. Instead of rejoicing over the fact that I cared so much for her father and loved him like blood, excuse me, she was furious. She was furious that I had called for an investigation of his care and that it would be performed. My heart, although not for the first time, shattered that day. I was at work on my break when I called his home and received the cold, nasty response. "You are not family and have no right to stick your nose in our business." I was so devastated by those words. So devastated that my wish for him to be delivered from dark, licking, hungry flames around him was so wrong. So devastated, in fact, I was unable to finish my duties. My mother and another coworker had to take over my serving up plates of food for our residents while I sat in the break room in a broken heap of sodden, mascara-streaked scrubs. I think that's the one and only time my mother has ever taken pity on me. Dear Earl passed away 2 days later. His kin squabbled greedily for his things. He had left quite a few of his late wife's things to me in his will, but his will counted for nothing. I didn't care about his material things. I just missed him, and I was again astounded at the disrespect, and my heart ached knowing my call was too late. It caused nothing but more pain. Since then, I haven't been so brazen when it comes to doing what's right, and for every frenzied lunge and the near-fatal jousting matches I've entered in the name of good, justice, and right, I feel severely punished, and I find myself standing in the exact same spot in the exact same torturous iron shoes that have been heated over the hottest flames of hell.